What's up, guys? Happy Red Friday. My name is Farzin Vasugi, and this is another edition of the Red Friday live chat. You guys know how this works each and every single Red Friday. Well, not each and every single Red Friday. We didn't do one last week. Not going to lie. I didn't even give you guys a heads up or anything. So I got a few comments about all that, but figured why not? I'm going out, enjoying life on a Friday night. Yes, kind of a surprise, but I did a Q&A the following day, last Saturday, to kind of make up for it, and a lot of Chiefs questions, a lot of non-Chiefs questions. So had a lot of fun doing that with you guys. I'll try to do Q&As more frequently. I know a lot of people enjoy those on Instagram and Facebook. So I'll try to do that more often because it had been a very long time since I had last done one of those. So I'd surprise you, but it does take a while to answer some of those questions. So that's why I don't do those very frequently. But nonetheless, we are not here to discuss that. We are here to talk NFL draft. Obviously, this is the final Red Friday live chat before the NFL draft. There will be a Red Friday live chat next week. It obviously will not be Friday night because that obviously not going to work with the timing of the NFL draft. So we will have it next week. It's going to be on Friday morning. So instead of doing it Friday evening, Friday night like we usually do, it's going to be on a Friday morning next week. So expect the Red Friday live chat to be a morning edition next week. But nonetheless, I see some of you guys are starting to come into the chat. I'm sure more will join in as the live stream goes on. Let's talk some NFL draft. First round pick, picking 32nd overall. And by the way, we'll discuss trades because in Brett Veach's press conference today, there were some talks about trading up in this draft, and Veach kind of seemed to enjoy that question that he got. I think it was from Matt Derrick, who asked that question. I can't remember who it was, but he did not dismiss the possibility, and you never can. You have to have all options on the table. You go ahead and select number 32. You trade up, you trade down. We've seen the Chiefs do a mixture of both in recent years. So what they want to do in this draft, we'll find out as we get closer and closer. And obviously the day of is when you're going to see a lot of the activity, a lot of the trades, all of that stuff go down. But let's just assume for right now that they are going to pick at the number 32 spot. Who are they going to get? I know a lot of people want to see, realistically, I mean, look, we would all love Marvin Harrison Jr., but we all know that is not happening. Marvin Harrison Jr., there is a slim chance that he falls out of the top 5 because of all of these rumors about the first 3 to 4 picks possibly being quarterbacks. So we'll have to see how that pans out. I still think he goes in the top 5, but there's a small chance with all these QBs going that Harrison might fall out of the top 5. Now, that's good news if you're a team like the Chiefs. Not saying the Chiefs are going to get Marvin Harrison Jr., but if the top 4 teams, the first 4 that is, if they all select a quarterback, then there's a chance that maybe someone that they feel is more ideal in their offensive system at wide receiver or left tackle might be available. I know a lot of people keep saying that this is a deep wide receiver class, a deep offensive tackle class, and Brett Veach acknowledged those conversations that has been going on essentially this offseason. Obviously, Chiefs fans have been having that discussion for a very long time, even before the Super Bowl, because we've all known for a very long time that the Chiefs are going to need a wide receiver and a left tackle. Even with the addition of Hollywood Brown, and even before this legal incident involving Rashee Rice, I think that there was still a preconceived notion that the Chiefs are going to consider a wide receiver in the first round. And with a potential suspension looming for Rashee Rice, I think it's now the way you look at the Chiefs and their draft board and their strategy going into the first round, they're probably going to be a little more aggressive about this on Thursday night. So, who could be realistically available? Well, I don't think they're trading up in the top 5 or 10. So guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, those guys are going to be gone. But then you look at receivers like Adonai Mitchell, Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU, Troy Franklin, which kind of surprisingly, a lot of you guys did not like. He was available. I've done the PFF mock draft, which is a really cool mock draft. You kind of get lost doing it. If you're not a subscriber, you can still do the first 3 rounds for free, if I'm not mistaken. So go do that when you guys get a chance. It's actually a lot of fun to do. And check all of that out. By the way, I see a few comments already in the chat here. If you guys have any questions, comments, whatever is on your mind, please comment below. Let me know what you guys want to talk about, what questions you guys have, and I'll answer those later on. But Troy Franklin might be available at number 32. Ladd McConkey could also be available. Keon Coleman, Roman Wilson, Ricky Purcell. But then you look at, and I'm just looking at Pro Football Focus's ranking. They have Xavier Worthy ranked 69th. So I mean, you look at the Chiefs, they're picking 32nd, and then they pick in the second round 64th, obviously the last pick in both of those rounds. Now we all know that teams just don't go by ranking. They're obviously, I mean, going by need is a big part of this. Xavier Worthy, in Pro Football Focus's mock draft simulator, at least a few weeks ago, Xavier Worthy was available with the 64th pick. But now, whenever you do the PFF mock draft, he is not available at number 32. Now, you can kind of change the Pro Football Focus simulation a little bit, such as, making it so teams go for best player available or biggest need, a little bit of randomness. We kind of see that in the draft sometimes. I mean, every year we see at least a few picks where teams draft a player at a position that no one expected them to even target, and they go that direction in the first round. Xavier Worthy, I know he's not a complete wide receiver. Obviously, the drops are an issue. Not something you want to hear if you're a Chiefs fan. But with his size and obviously the speed, he obviously got a lot of attention for breaking the NFL Combine record for fastest 40 time. That guy really does fit in Andy Reid's offense. Absolutely does. But again, the drops. And for whatever reason, as the season went on, the Chiefs could not address the drops. Here's something I was thinking of too the other day. Not to get too off topic here, but I just kind of realized this, because when you go back and look at the Kansas City Chiefs offense, yes, they did step up and play better in the playoffs, but they also continued hurting themselves in the playoffs. So, for example, in the wild card game against the Miami Dolphins, Rashee Rice did have a touchdown. I think that that was going to be a second touchdown of the game, but I think it was an illegal block in the back on Jawan Taylor. Got called back. Same player, Rashee Rice, 2 weeks later in the AFC Championship game against Baltimore, he had a touchdown on a screenplay, but got called back because of a penalty on, I think it was Trey Smith, if I recall correctly. And by the way, I've heard, a few people say, oh, you can't call that because it doesn't impact the play. It honestly reminds me of when fans complain about a call late in the game. Oh, you can't call that late in the game with so much on the line. Why? Why not? A penalty is a penalty. It doesn't matter where it happens at the time of the game. None of that. So there were 2 touchdowns from Rashee Rice in the playoffs that got taken away. And then in the divisional round against Buffalo, that roller coaster of emotion game, Mecole Hardman fumbled right at the 1 yard line, fumbled the ball into the end zone when the Chiefs could have gone up by 10 points, which is why I keep saying Buffalo was even lucky to attempt a field goal to tie the game. In that situation, had it not been for Mecole Hardman's fumble, Buffalo would have had to have a completely different strategy in those last few minutes in the fourth quarter. In the Super Bowl, Rashee Rice had a fumble. Also in the Super Bowl, when the Chiefs got a fumble from Christian McCaffrey, a deep pass to Mecole Hardman, and on the next play, Isaiah Pacheco fumbles, I think right inside the red zone. I think it was inside the 10 too, if I recall correctly. So my point is, the Chiefs continue to hurt themselves a lot offensively. 2 touchdowns taken away, 1 turnover at the 1 yard line, and another turnover that was inside the red zone. So these kinds of situations, I mean, you can never afford to make mistakes like that. You can never afford to make mistakes in general. It's just very costly when you do it, within striking distance like the Chiefs did a couple of times this postseason. And those are the kinds of things that, the whole offense, it's a, by the way, reminder, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. And go watch that Super Bowl if you guys haven't. The Chiefs did not have a long touchdown drive. We talked about this on the podcast Wednesday. The Chiefs did not have a long touchdown drive, meaning they did not start with the football at their own, 20, 25, 30, wherever, and march all the way down the field for a touchdown. They did have a touchdown in regulation. That was, off of the fumble. Well, I guess off punt technically on that punt from Tommy Townsend. Obviously a very lucky situation, but that's just the way the ball goes sometimes. Oddly enough, like a bad punt in football can kind of like be a good thing for the punting team, because the punt return team, the blockers, don't really know that there's a bad punt, and it just kind of goes in the wrong direction, and they just don't know it sometimes. But anyway, the Chiefs got a touchdown shortly after that, but it was not on an actual like drive where they got it to go. They almost got a touchdown right before the end of regulation, didn't get it. Their only touchdown drive was in overtime, and that was the game winner. And it kind of was like a weird representation of the Chiefs season. It's like, man, this Chiefs team struggles a lot offensively, but whenever they need to capitalize and do something right, they do it. Not the ideal way to do things, but that's kind of the way that things have worked for the Chiefs. Not just this past year, but even in the Patrick Mahomes era. They kind of make things more difficult than they need to be. So I think what you want to do in this draft, and obviously you've tried to do some of that this offseason as well, what can you do offensively to stop hurting yourself? They had Hollywood Brown, who's had some drop issues. His drop issues aren't as terrible as some people make them out to be. And this is someone that has a very similar skill set to Tyreek Hill. And that's something you definitely want to have on your football team. To be clear, I'm not saying he is Tyreek Hill, but if you want to talk about, the most dynamic receivers in the NFL right now, Tyreek Hill is by far number one. And there's a big gap between 1 and 2 right now, but you can make a case that Hollywood Brown could be number 2 in the NFL right now. And that's why the Chiefs went and got him. That's why Arizona wanted him. And they traded for him on the day of the draft a couple of years ago. So it's going to be interesting to see what they want to do at that wide receiver position. They have options. I like Worthy. I really like Mitchell, the other Texas wide receiver. I think he might go higher than 22, which is PFF's rank for him. Brian Thomas out of LSU, not bad. I like Troy Franklin. Some people don't. He's a tall receiver that can win a lot of one-on-one matchups, something that you don't see a lot in Kansas City's offense. A lot of it is shorter guys, very fast guys who possess great speed that can outrun defensive backs and get wide open. Ladd McConkey, I know a lot of you guys like him, and Keon Coleman. Now, Keon Coleman, taking him number 32 might be a bit of a reach. And let me just say this too, because when the Chiefs traded up to get Trent McDuffie, there were a few Chiefs fans who said that's a reach. Well, how do you know? Let me ask you guys this question. Why did the Chiefs trade up 17 spots to get Patrick Mahomes? Now, a lot of you guys are going to say, well, they felt pretty good about him. Well, yeah, of course. But there's a bigger reason behind that too. They probably found out that another team was going to trade up to get Patrick Mahomes. And if they just sat down and just waited at number 27 that year, they were not going to get the quarterback they wanted. They were not going to get Mahomes. They would not have gotten Deshaun Watson. So they called the Buffalo Bills, of all teams, the team that is probably like struggling the most when facing Patrick Mahomes in the biggest stage. They said, yeah, sure, we'll make that trade, and the rest is history. But you get the idea. They traded up to get Mahomes because they probably found out through maybe another team, maybe through Patrick's agent, that another team was trying very aggressively to trade up to get Mahomes, and the Chiefs beat them to the punch. Same thing with the Trent McDuffie pick is, the Chiefs traded up because they probably found out through another team that another team wanted McDuffie, and they really wanted McDuffie. Obviously, I think seeing what has transpired since then, that was a very good move by Kansas City to trade up and get McDuffie. Here's the crazy thing about McDuffie. In his 2 years in the NFL, he has not gotten an interception. which is wild. I know he's forced a lot of fumbles for a cornerback, but he has yet to get an interception, but was a first team all pro defensive back. How many players in their first 2 years at the cornerback or even the safety position can go those 2 years, not get an interception, and be voted first team all pro? It just doesn't happen. And obviously, he's sharing the field with another great player who should have been an all pro, in L'Jarius Sneed, who's obviously moved on with the Tennessee Titans now. So when you look at this Chiefs team and what they need, what if they take someone that's expected to go mid-second round? Again, assuming they don't trade up. Well, they don't want to trade down because they're worried that someone else might make another trade during that 20-some hour time span between the 32nd pick and the 33rd pick, and the player that they really want might go. So, and this is why, I'm very, what's the right word here? I just try to tread lightly whenever we see teams take a player that was supposed to go way later. It's like, well, they probably really like this kid. And by the way, let's get one other thing out of the way here, because just because we think there's a need at a certain position doesn't mean the team feels the exact same way. I know a lot of people feel like the Chiefs need a wide receiver, a left tackle, and a defensive tackle next to Chris Jones. People feel like those are the top 3 needs for the Chiefs. Well, there's probably a good chance that Brett Veach and Andy Reid, and I'm just speculating here, I'm just giving you guys an example too. There's a good chance that maybe they don't feel like they need a left tackle as big as we might think. They might like Wanya Morris more than we believe. I know they've given Wanya Morris, some positive comments in their pressers this week, but behind closed doors, they obviously won't reveal how they really feel about certain things. So that's something to keep in mind. I do think, if I had to give you a percentage as to where the Chiefs might go, I think there's a 70% chance they go wide receiver first round, 20% chance they go for a left tackle, and then a 10% chance it'll be a defensive lineman. It would be their 3rd year in a row drafting a defensive lineman. George Karlaftis a couple of years ago, FAU last year, and the Chiefs got a lot of their defensive linemen back, which is huge. And of course, if they do it this year, it would be the 3rd year in a row. We'll see who that could be. Who I really like is Dwayne Carter from Duke, someone who the Chiefs might be able to get in the 3rd or 4th rounds. I think that guy, in the future, we might look back and say, hey, that guy probably could have been a first-round pick, or should have been a first-round pick. Kind of like Travis Kelce, who was taken early in the 3rd round, obviously was the best player in that draft class. All right, I am going to now read your guys' comments. And by the way, for those of you who are here, if you guys would, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I just commented with the link to that. So if you haven't had a chance to do so, please subscribe to that. With that said, time to read some comments here. Jim says, I really hope you get a really good wide receiver. Yeah, I think a lot of people are hoping for that as well. Bob says a Texas wide receiver. I think a lot of people, me included, if you take one of the Texas guys, either Mitchell or Worthy, I would not be upset one bit. My preference is Worthy. I think, the miscues that he has with his drops, I'd like to think you can work on that with him. But I kind of question, all the offensive woes with drops last year. Why could that not get resolved during the season? Can you resolve that during this offseason? I hope so. Xavier Worthy is someone that would need some help in that category as well. Speaking of Worthy, Jim's asking, think they trade up to get Xavier Worthy? If you want Xavier Worthy, let me just say this right now. If you want Xavier Worthy, I don't think he's available at number 32. You have to trade up to get him. Now, what options do you have for trading up? You could maybe do a 2nd day pick or early 3rd day pick of this year's draft, or you could try to sweeten the deal a little bit and try to give them some draft picks for next year. Now, keep in mind, the Chiefs have 2 3rd-round picks. One of them is from Tennessee in the L'Jarius Sneed trade. And here's something I would, and this is just me playing, behind the keyboard general manager here. What if the Chiefs found a way to keep their first round pick this year and they were willing to give up next year's first round pick and next year's third round pick from Tennessee? Because I think it's fair to say the Chiefs are going to have a better record than the Titans this year. So that Tennessee pick would be higher than the Chiefs pick in the third round. Again, remember, the Chiefs have 2 third-round picks for next year's draft. Because here's my thing. I want the Chiefs to go all in this year for this three-peat, because there are a lot of guys who might be playing their final season with the Chiefs. Justin Reed's entering the final year of his contract. Harrison Butker, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Nick Bolton. You have a lot of guys on this team right now who might be wearing that red and gold for the final time this season. And I think they'll try very hard to keep a guy like Creed Humphrey and maybe Trey Smith. But the offensive guard market has gone up this year. It has skyrocketed for sure. So trying to retain a guy like Trey Smith is not going to be easy in 10 to 11 months. Not going to be very easy at all. So there's a possibility that, you know, you're going to lose a lot of key guys next offseason. So go all in on this three-peat, because the guys that you have now, a lot of them might not be here. And, you know, especially when you talk about the defense, I think Justin Reed is heavily underappreciated in Kansas City. And then, you know, you got guys like Karlaftis, Pacheco, Karlaftis still has the fifth-year option. I forgot about that. And I was going to say McDuffie, Brian Cook. You know, that's someone who, you know, would be eligible for a new contract after this season. So you got some things to think about with some of these football players, because there are a lot of guys who you might lose this offseason, and a lot of guys next when I say this offseason, I mean the following offseason. And in that same offseason, there might be some guys that want bigger deals because of the way they're playing. And that's just something that just the way things work sometimes. But yeah, to answer Jim's question, if you want Xavier Worthy, I think you got to trade up probably in the early 20s of the draft. If you really want Xavier Worthy, I would be thrilled if they got him. I really would. Bob says, I will be very surprised if they get Mitchell or Worthy. Yeah, again, kind of like the previous question with Jim's comment there. It's not going to happen at number 32. A lot of mock drafts a couple of weeks ago had those two guys available at 32. Not today. I think a lot of the media, the way they're doing their mock drafts, and again, I want to acknowledge a comment I made earlier. The media and the fans, the way they do mock drafts is not the same as all these teams. You'll see, if you could actually see every team's mock draft and big board and compare it to the media's, you would see a wide difference, a huge difference. I'd be happy with AD Mitchell or Troy Franklin. Seeing YouTube videos on both of those guys. Yeah, look, you know, when you see highlight reels, all that, you see more positive things sometimes. I think a lot of the networks have done a better job of showing both highlights and also some of the cons of certain players and talking about what they need to work on, because you can be the number one player in the draft. You still have things to work on. Patrick Mahomes, there was a lot that he needed to work on coming out of the draft. Obviously, you know, you saw a lot of people's grades for that pick, and I think that's more so because people were surprised they went with Mahomes over Watson. Obviously, ended up being the right move, but in general, this is you know, you'll see networks put out the highlights, and you'll also see them talk about what they need to work on. Chris is asking, do you think Rashee Rice will play this year? I do think he will play this year. I don't think he's getting suspended the whole season. But it's going to be a hefty suspension. I'm seeing some people say that the NFL might do something to make a statement. I don't know what that would look like, though. I just don't. What would a statement look like for for the Rashee Rice situation? What kind of a suspension would you want to give? Here's what I will say right now. And it is kind of crazy that, we're still seeing this, especially after Britt Reed and Henry Ruggs. If you're the NFL, and I'll say this right now, I think the NFL has been very soft on a lot of their off the field punishments that they hand out. If you were very aggressive about fining players and suspending them for certain things, I guarantee you, like, let me give you an example. Again, I don't think this will happen, but if Rice gets suspended for the whole season, if the NFL says we want to suspend him the entire year, all 17 games and the postseason, dude, that would be a statement. And I think a lot of other NFL players would say, holy shit, I better have my shit together and not do that stupid crap outside of football. You want a race? Go find a racetrack. You listen, man, just go up to a racetrack and say you're an NFL player. You play for so-and-so. You're a Super Bowl champion, for crying out loud. I think a lot of racetrack owners will say, fuck yeah, come on over. They would love that kind of that kind of recognition. Like, they will absolutely post that stuff on their social media and say, hey, look who's hanging out at our racetrack. And they'll cut you a really nice deal. But I don't think that's going to happen. So at the most, I think it'll be half a season. So 8 or 9 games at the most. Move up for Brock Bowers. Is he expected to go in the first round? I think he is. Yeah, I mean, I can see the logic in that. Because Travis Kelce, by the way, I mentioned a few players who might be playing their final season. There's a chance Travis Kelce might play his final year in the NFL. You just never know. Going to turn 35 in October, if I recall correctly. What if you have a guy like Bowers who is under Kelce's wing, and you can also run a lot of 2 tight end sets? I would not be opposed one bit. I still would prefer the Chiefs to go after a wide receiver, but you can't dismiss the possibility. A lot of people would be surprised to see this for sure, but I don't think that will happen. Yeah, red zone was pretty bad, Rochelle, 100%. And that, like, even in the playoffs, like the McCole Hardman fumble and the Isaiah Pacheco fumble in the Super Bowl, you just can't do things like that. And the Chiefs still won all those games. So that's the crazy part. What about Ladd McConkey from Georgia? He'd be a great pick. Yeah, he would be. And again, that's not a player I'm opposed to. Let me say this too, because I said this a couple of years ago when the Chiefs got Sky Moore. A lot of Chiefs fans wanted George Pickens. And I think they had an opportunity to get Pickens, but they traded down. And I think the players that they wanted eventually got off the board and went to Pittsburgh or whoever. And they ended up getting Sky Moore, and people were still excited. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter too much who your receiver is. I still think there's, you still need a key receiver here and there. That's why the Chiefs went and got Hollywood Brown. But ultimately, it's the quarterback who makes the big plays there. And in this style of offense, if you have good speed, which a lot of these receivers do on the Chiefs, like Kadarius Toney, like McCole Hardman, I mean, not on the team right now, but who was on the team before, Sky Moore, Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, they've got really good speed. And even guys in the past like Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, Byron Pringle, Demarcus Robinson, those guys were pretty damn fast too. But at the end of the day, it's Mahomes that's out there making the pass and doing what needs to be done in this offense and letting those guys do the rest and collecting the yak yards. So again, like McConkey, I think he'd be another good fit for this offense. But I could, at the end of the day, if the Chiefs get, a solid, first round draft pick at 32 or anywhere, above, if they trade up, I think people will still be happy in general and will say, hey, this guy can definitely thrive with Mahomes, because people will always look at the positives. They believe that Andy Reid will find ways to help these players fix whatever woes they have, whatever weaknesses they have. And they get things down with Mahomes in OTAs, training camp, and preseason, and then early on in the regular season, people will feel pretty good about that pick. I think whoever you draft at the wide receiver position, whether it's number at the first round or in the second round, I think that guy might be a week one starter, mainly because of the Rice suspension. And go back to Kadarius Toney, because that's been a big topic of conversation this week from Andy Reid and from Brett Veach. Both Andy Reid and Brett Veach gave a vote of confidence for Kadarius Toney, and both of them talked about that. He needs to stay healthy, and if he can, this guy can do some damage. I said on the podcast on Wednesday, Rashee Rice has given us reasons to believe in him. You look at what he did his first year with the Chiefs. He was traded during the season, and during the year, he picked up the offense pretty quickly, I thought. Remember that touchdown play where he was adjusting his glove while the ball was in midair? Like, I'll never forget that. Obviously, the punt return late in the season in the Super Bowl, that was huge, of course. In the same Super Bowl, he was one of the recipients of a touchdown pass on a corn dog play. Yeah, sure, a lot of it is mostly Andy Reid, finding a way to fool the defense, but you still need the right guys to pull that move off, and Kadarius Toney played a part in that. But then he's also giving you reasons to not believe in him because of the drops, because of his yard per catch average. And I know Andy Reid going into the bye week, or after coming out of the bye week rather, he brought this up to the media when asked about KT. He said, "Guys, look, this guy had knee surgery very early in training camp." And I get that, but is there like a correlation to the knee surgery and the drops that you're saying? Because he had a lot of balls go off of his hands and into the defense's hands. And then, just drops in general, just went to the ground. It happened in that week one game against Detroit, had a couple of key drops in that one, actually. And then the last game we saw from him against New England, his season ended with a ball going off his hands and into a New England Patriots defender's hands. So, I mean, how do you manage that? What do you do to try to get him to improve on that? I don't know. I don't have the answers to that. I feel like the Chiefs, and I saw videos of this in one of the practice sessions where the assistant coaches and managers, they have the equipment. I don't know what it's called, but they basically have those long poles where they're doing their best to knock the ball out of the hands from the receivers while they're catching it in traffic, going through those tunnels, whatever they're called, the car wash looking thing. That's one way to work about it. JJ Burton mentioned that's what you do when you drop a football. That's if you drop multiple footballs, that's what you have to do to try to recover from that before the next game. And the Chiefs had been doing that, but still we didn't see a change in that. Yes, we did see McCole Hardman make a big play in the Super Bowl and then have the game-winning touchdown catch later on. Yes, we did see MVS come through with some big plays, but still overall body of work, those guys still did not do a good job last season, which is why they're not on the team for right now. I don't want to dismiss McCole completely because McCole Hardman is still very young. And if he can just find the right fit, and people thought the Jets got a good pickup in McCole Hardman, but they were barely using him. When he came back to the Chiefs, they had been using him more than the Jets had. But yeah, the Chiefs decided to move on from those two guys for now. So we'll see what happens there. We need a good offensive lineman, left tackle. Jeff says, yeah, definitely need a left tackle. It's just, to me, where's our confidence level with Wanya Morris? Because I know they really like Wanya Morris, but do they think he is a week one starter, or do they want to bring in someone else to compete against him? If you draft someone in the first round at the left tackle spot, that guy has to be your week one starter. But if you draft someone in the third or fourth round at the left tackle position, then that might spell some competition in training camp for Wanya Morris and that potential left tackle at the rookie at the left tackle position. Draft Tay for the win. I think they already had her. She won Rookie of the Year. She's allegedly the reason why the 49ers lost the Super Bowl. I mean, she blocked the kick. She made them not know the overtime rules. She made Christian McCaffrey fumble. She did all those things. By the way, if you're one of those people that's triggered because of her album and throwing shade at all the Chiefs haters, go outside and touch some grass. Is that what the kids say? Right? Touch some grass, go outside, whatever. Dude, how can you be triggered over someone releasing an album? Just don't think about it and go listen to music that you like. It's not that hard. I mean, listen, I listened to Taylor Swift's album today. It's not my cup of tea. It's just not. But hey, I mean, listen, a lot of people love her and good on her. She's wildly successful and great at what she does. And you know, she's doing things that a lot of other musicians wish they could do. So good on her. She's brought a lot of eyes to the sport of football. Oddly enough, her involvement has put the Chiefs in the middle of this weird conspiracy theory with games being rigged and the election endorsement possibility. It's like, okay, whatever. But Jesus Christ, man, it's like people really are outraged over like nothing. Go do a puzzle. Go for a walk. Go play a video game. I don't know, man. Like, let me just say this. I think Keeping Up with the Kardashians is a stupid show. Do I complain about it on my Twitter? No, I just watch something else that I like. It's that simple. Robert says, what about a one-year deal veteran wide receiver such as Odell Beckham Jr.? Yeah, Tyler Boyd's another guy that the Chiefs have been rumored to be interested in, and the reports out there are that Tyler Boyd's going to wait after the draft to sign, which I can understand, because if you're the Chiefs and you have Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice is going to face a suspension, but he's still a part of your team. And if you draft a wide receiver in round 1, there's no way in hell Tyler Boyd's coming to Kansas City. Now he might go back to Cincinnati, depending if Higgins comes back or not. If Higgins is not returning, which I think he will, but if Higgins comes back, he's probably going to want to go elsewhere. I said for a long time, I think the two best teams when it comes to wide receiver depth are the Bengals and the 49ers, in that order. And the Bengals, obviously, they don't know what's going to happen to T. Higgins. I think he's going to stay ultimately. Tyler Boyd, yeah, again, that's great depth, but he probably wants more reps elsewhere. And I think he's more than capable of handling those duties on any other team. Yeah, the Miami Dolphins, that's another team as well. But it's just, man, like after Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, it's like you really don't have much else. And it kind of showed this year when they weren't as invincible in the second half of the season as they were in the first half of the season. Matthew says, so when Rashee Rice gets back on the field for KC after a suspension, KC fans will nickname him Fast and Furious. Oh, ha, ha, ha. Yes. It's kind of funny you say that, Matthew, because, and listen, he will not do this, but wouldn't it be hilarious if Mitch Holthus or an announcer on CBS or Fox just said, fuck it. And they, during like a Rashee Rice touchdown, their call is, Rashee Rice racing to the end zone like a Corvette or a Lamborghini, because that's what he was driving. Dude, that would be hilarious if someone did that. I mean, I don't think an announcer will, because we are in a heavily cancel culture type of society now. So, I don't know. I think it'd be hilarious if an announcer did that. The NFL soft Rice will get more than 4 games. I've said this for a long time. I have no idea what the suspension is going to. I don't even know when the suspension is going to. Is it even going to happen this year? I think it will, but I don't know that for sure. We've seen in the past the NFL wait a very long time on certain suspensions. And yeah, there are legal matters, the legal process, and that can take time as well. But then there have been situations where there's no legal matter involved and they still take forever to hand out a suspension. We've seen that in years past. I think they've been a little better about it, about trying to be quicker about handing out suspensions in a timely manner, not waiting more than 12 months like they had in years past. I think they did that with Sean Smith. Remember Sean Smith? He had a DUI in Kansas City and they gave him a 3-game suspension, but we had to wait more than a year to find out about that. Blake says Xavier Leggett and Patrick Paul would be dream picks. I would love Patrick Paul. I really like what I've seen on film from Patrick Paul. He also has a lot of experience playing at the left tackle position in Houston. I think he was a 3-year starter, if I recall correctly. If you got Xavier Worthy And Patrick Paul, man, I'm thrilled. I'm going to be on this podcast excited next week. I know you put a different Xavier Blake, but yeah, I mean, Patrick Paul would be a very good left tackle to have. I think he'd be available at 64 next week. Swing offensive tackle, then a tight end. I think they'll get a tight end this year. It's just, they have Noah Gray, who I know they like, and they used him a little more frequently in the second half of the season. They got Irv Smith Jr. from the Bengals, so he's another interesting guy to just be aware of. Andy Reid sounded like offensive tackle and wide receiver is being considered for round one. Seems those two will be the first two picks. Yeah, I think that's what I said a few weeks ago, Blake. And I think a lot of people in Kansas City share that same sentiment, to the point where if your first two picks, whether you have a first round pick and a second round pick, or if you trade down and you have multiple second round picks, if your first two picks are not offensive tackle and wide receiver, I think a lot of people would definitely be surprised, for sure. We have to see if Rice will get any jail time for what he was caught doing. Yeah, I don't think he'll spend any time behind bars. Is it fair? Shit, man, life's not fair. But you guys all know just as well as I do, not all of the rules apply to everyone equally. And this is not like a political statement. I said that comment a couple of weeks ago. People were like, "Oh, you're referring to Trump." Like, no, I'm not. I'm referring to everyone, whether it's politicians, actors, athletes, like people who are in high places. They get off a lot easier than some other people. I think it will be interesting to see what KT will do this season. Yeah, he was supposed to be your number one guy this year, or this past year, and he was not part of your postseason run this year. He wasn't. And like I said earlier, he's given you reasons to not believe in him, and he's also giving you reasons to believe in him. I think that's really Kansas City's wide receiver core in a nutshell. Even with guys they've moved on from, like Mecole Hardman and MVS, like there's the potential. I mean, MVS can seriously destroy a defense if he holds on to the football. Mecole Hardman, if he plays better, if he holds on to the football, the amount of damage he can do to a defense is pretty absurd and scary if you're a defensive coordinator. Sky Moore, I think he has that talent. Kadarius Toney's another guy, but the rest of your skill set doesn't mean shit if you're not catching the football. And I think that's what, a lot of people struggle with when they hear Kadarius Toney's name. I'm sure Brett Veach has a plan. He's backing KT to improve this upcoming season. We'll just have to wait and see in the draft. Plenty of wide receivers to choose from, both speed and versatility. Yeah. No, you certainly have that as well this year. Listen, I hope KT succeeds. Like, he's a guy on your team right now. And let me put it to you like this. If the Raiders or the Broncos or the Chargers got KT, okay, hypothetically speaking, and if he found a way to solve his drop issues, I would be scared going up against him twice a year. I would not want to do that. I would even want to go up against him once a year. That's a receiver that defensive coordinators strategize around so much. But if you're not catching passes, if you're dropping the ball so much, so what? Who cares about the rest of your skills? That's why I think last season was so frustrating with the offense. And again, it carried over into the playoffs. Kareem Hunt, now Rice. I hope we don't lose Rice for another team to pick him up. I don't think that's going to happen, Robert. Let me just say this. Let's say hypothetically the Chiefs cut Rice today. Obviously the Hollywood Brown edition becomes more valuable, but remember when everybody wrote off the Chiefs when they traded Tyreek Hill 24 months ago to 25 months ago now. Remember that? Everyone wrote off the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes was no longer going to be good. Travis Kelce was going to be double teamed with ease, and nothing was going to work for Kansas City's offense. And even last year, which was the worst year offensively for the Chiefs, they still found a way to win the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes had an MVP year almost unanimously. his first year without Tyreek Hill. The Chiefs have won the Super Bowl every year without Tyreek Hill so far. Look, if you can find this kind of success without Tyreek every year since Tyreek Hill got traded away, I think you'll be just fine without Rashee Rice. I'm not encouraging that. I'm not endorsing that. I'm not suggesting that. All I'm saying is if new information comes up to the point where the Chiefs feel like they got to cut him, okay, I still feel good about this team because you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce as well as another one of your key guys. And you have a great defense. A lot of your guys on defense coming back. Yes, Snead's gone. Willie Gay's gone. But let me go back to that because Snead was awesome in one-on-one coverage last year. I know a lot of people love to create this fake narrative that Snead got help with double teams. Not really. If you actually go and look up the film, and it's out there for you all to look at, it's called the All 22. He was winning a lot of one-on-one battles, a lot of them, and offenses could not figure it out last year. It helps that you have a good pass rush. You can be the best defensive back in the NFL, but if you don't have a good pass rush, it's not going to be easy. The Chiefs had a great defense all around, but having a strong pass rush is more important than having a strong group of defensive backs. Because if you have a bad group of defensive backs, but a great pass rushing unit, well, then that bad group of defensive backs can look average, and an average group can look above average, and so on. All right, we're going to take a few more questions here. We're actually near the end of the live stream, so let's see. I hear Rice will probably not play at all this coming season. I mean, I don't know. I don't think we've heard that yet. Where did you hear that from? Because we're still kind of waiting on those details. We are still waiting on those details. Last season was different. It was a different year for the Chiefs. I don't think it will happen this season. The drops. Yeah, I don't either. You'd like to think they can figure that out in the offseason. Obviously, you're bringing guys like Hollywood Brown, potentially a first-round draft pick at the wide receiver position. So you're going to have some new faces there. And a guy like it, let me say this too. If Kadarius Toney's role is different with the team, meaning he has less snaps this year on offense, well, that also decreases the chance of him dropping the ball more frequently. And in the limited opportunities that he has available to prove himself, if he can play better, well, guess what? Those snaps are going to go up each week gradually for him. And the Chiefs will trust him more and throw the ball to him more. And if he continues to not drop the ball frequently, then yeah, he's going to be used more often, for sure. Is Kadarius Toney going to drop a pass in the future? Yes. I don't know. Whoever you think is the best wide receiver in the NFL right now, probably Tyreek Hill, okay? Tyreek Hill will have at least a couple of drops this season. One of the best available receivers in the NFL this year, before the franchise tag, that is, T. Higgins. T. Higgins has a lot of drops, but he makes up for it with his production. So Kadarius Toney, he will drop a pass again one day, but can he limit those drops is the most important thing. Yeah, Justin Watson, who dropped the ball a lot also last year, but he was still one of your more productive wide receivers on the team, which is crazy to say. All right, that'll do it. A shorter edition of the Red Friday live chat. Obviously, a very quiet news week for the Chiefs. So just a quick look for next week. We'll do a podcast probably Wednesday, or maybe even the day before. I'm not exactly sure when we'll do a podcast. And then we'll do another podcast Thursday night. That will be the official draft preview. We'll do it live on Facebook and YouTube. It'll be on the podcast if you guys do not catch it live. And then, I'm sorry. What am I saying? Thursday's the day of the draft. We can't do it Thursday. Okay, so Wednesday is going to be the draft preview. My mistake. Okay, Wednesday's the draft preview. We might do a podcast on Monday, just kind of depending on the news cycle. If there's not much to talk about, then I probably won't do one. Thursday, we'll do a live stream right before the draft, and then I will go live as soon as the Chiefs make their pick. And whatever we do the post-pick live stream, it'll also be on the podcast version. So we'll be doing the Chiefs on podcast live. We'll be doing the Red Friday live chat next Friday morning. Not exactly sure what time, but it will be in the morning rather than at night because that interferes with the draft. Okay, a couple of comments came up. Let me just answer these real fast. They say that football is definitely won in the trenches. That's a true statement. Yeah, 100%. That's why it's important to have those defense. Who was it? I think it was Albert Breer who said this. L'Jarius Sneed can only take away one wide receiver, but Chris Jones and George Karlaftis, they can take away an entire receiving core, which is absolutely true. You put pressure on that quarterback, the receivers are essentially nullified. Mary says, what's up? We probably need another fullback or offensive lineman in the draft. There's been some speculation if the Chiefs will try to bring back the fullback position. I would like that. You can also use your tight end as a fullback. I've seen some teams do that. Yeah, that would be interesting. Offensive lineman, 100%. I think there's a possibility the Chiefs will draft either multiple receivers or multiple offensive linemen in the draft next week. I would be surprised if we don't see either of those. Could they draft multiple receivers and multiple offensive linemen? Maybe. I mean, your offense needs far more help than your defense. So I'm not exactly sure. But we'll see. So yes, next Wednesday will be our draft preview. I will have a Chiefs full mock draft for you, and I will break down all of the picks and why I project certain players to come to Kansas City. All of that and much more on next Wednesday's episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Next Thursday, we'll be doing some live streams before and during the draft. As soon as the Chiefs make a pick, come right here. We'll be reacting to the draft pick after it happens. So check that out. And then the Red Friday live chat will be next Friday morning. So that way we don't interfere with the second and third round of the NFL draft. All right, guys, my name is Farzin Vousoughian. Enjoy the rest of your Friday night. Appreciate you all. I will talk to you all later. Peace out.